Today we are here at the Collective Works Gallery with a conversation with artist Linda Jane Schmid, and we will talk about her art, her background, artistic background, and the exhibition that is right now in the gallery. Hello, Linda. How are you today?
Hi, Fran. Hi. Thank you. So, making art is something I've always done. I was encouraged when I was young and had lots of extra art classes, and it was something that I practiced from the time that I was young. I would be curious about how do you draw a face, and so I practiced these things on my own as well as having classes. And I went to art school when I was quite young, but went on and did other things in life. But there was a point where, about 20 years ago, where I decided I need to make a decision. I need to make a decision about what I'm really focusing on. So I went through this whole process of considering different things that I was interested in and decided to make a commitment to my art. And that made a huge difference. Right away, that made a difference. Because whenever I would get an idea, I felt, I have a commitment to this. So I would follow through with the idea, rather than just, doing a few little drawings and then putting it aside. I set up a studio for myself. And when I had an idea, I would follow it through. And if I got stuck, I would try different ways of dealing with it. And I started spending more time with artists, finding out how different people approached their art and getting ideas for how I could approach my own art. And just taking my own practice more seriously. And soon I started exhibiting my work, and it seemed to develop a momentum of its own once I'd made that commitment. And then I started taking more classes with artists, private classes and group classes, and just any kind of stimulus that I could get to keep me going with it. And then if there was something specific I wanted to learn in terms of a technique, I would go to someone who knew how to do that and learn how to do that. So it almost feels like something that has a life of its own. And I'm kind of following it, and it's something I do as a practice. But there's also this feeling of there's these images and ideas that come to me, and then I have a responsibility to develop them and to follow through with them and to see where they go, where they want to go. And sometimes it'll come in a dream, or sometimes I'll hear something. I'll hear a news story about something, and it'll capture my imagination in some way, and I'll go, I have to find out more about that. And I'll get an image that comes with that. And so I'll follow that, because of my commitment, that's what I do. So in terms of education, I've mainly had a little bit here, a little bit there. I've been to art school, but I've never followed through in terms of a degree. I've always had, work and family and other commitments. So even though my art is a big thing for me, it's always in balance with everything else in my life as well, and fed by those things too. So, yeah.
So, how the idea of the first show for you came?
That's an interesting question. Well, it's interesting because there was an image that I had in my imagination of a vessel. It was an image of a vessel, and it was tied in with my interest in goddess cultures and the relationship between female imagery and from ancient cultures and the earth, and a feeling of reverence for the earth. And so that's what I was interested in. And I started working. I had this great big painting that I was working on, And I didn't know how to finish it. I had this image on it, but it wasn't complete. And so I went to a friend of mine who's an artist and said, what should I do? And she said, this one piece is so precious to you now, you're afraid to do anything to it. Start several others with the same image and work it out in different ways. And so that's what I did. And I just kept going. Just kept trying more and more different ways of painting this same image, and I was doing different things to the surface. It was on paper, so I was wrinkling the paper and, putting the paint on in different ways, getting different kinds of textures on it. And that led to my first body of work, because I was trying all these different ways of dealing with this one image. I would try it with a mountain in the background or with a grid over it, just one thing led to another. But it really sort of shaped the way that I work and have continued to work. I'll have an image that I want to depict, but I'll try different ways of doing it, and that leads to a body of work. So.
From the beginning, did you start with when you start, are you using the same medium, or everything change or evolve, or now?
I go in and out of different mediums. Often I'll decide for one project I want to use a particular medium. For instance, I did a whole series of paintings over a period of about 6 years of Greek village architecture. And I did them in oils. And that was part of the project, to do these paintings in oils. And I had a particular way that I did, an undercoat of this very intense blue, and then I would paint. It was almost like interlocking pieces with bits of the blue in the background showing through around the edges of the shapes. But I'm also, whenever I have, like a main project going on, I'll always be doing something else kind of on the side. Like I'm always doing some kind of collage. And it's almost like if it seems like too much energy to work on a painting, I can always do collage, so I always have somewhere where there's all these different little elements that I'm interested in, putting them together in different ways. And also that's a way to kind of free up my vision and my ability to just work. Is with collage, you're taking things and putting them together, rather than trying to make something appear on a canvas. So somehow that's less intimidating and seems like a natural way for me to work. So I'm often working on all these little assemblages and collages at the same time. Something else I want to say, though, about my creative process is that I do a lot of observing of natural forms. For instance, clouds. Like I've done a lot of paintings of the sky, and I take a lot of photographs, but I also just spend a lot of time observing cloud behavior. And the same goes for trees, or if I'm good, or gardens, just the shapes of plants, I'm always observing that, and as closely as I can, and just spending time in nature so that I'm kind of absorbing those essences, and then they come out in my work, not necessarily represented exactly, but informing, with their energy, informing my work. So I feel like there's natural forces that come through me.